Be a little delayed. Welcome to the Zachrilege cast. Xmolex, welcome on tonight. How's it going?
Thanks for having me. It's going good.
So before we get the show officially started, wanted to do, I don't even know if these are out of context. I occasionally do out of context quotes for guests. And since I listened to quite a few of your episodes on YouTube, check it out, people. Want to throw those out and get your reaction. So the first one is, She has a sweet soul.
Like the sweet spirit thing Mormons say.
Maybe, did I get it? Did I get you wrong out of context?
She has such a sweet spirit.
See, I live in Atlanta, so I'm in the South. So bless your heart is a thing.
Yeah, it's just like that.
And this is the Mormon version of bless your heart, which is like a version of, oh, nice, but you know.
Yeah. Well, and something that like I forgot to mention about that is that like, this is really sad and mean, but like a lot of Mormon guys would use that as like, she's not good looking, but she has a sweet spirit. So they say, oh, she's such a sweet spirit. Yeah.
So that's the Mormon version of you got a good personality. Okay.
Pretty much. Yep.
Okay. Second one, the one thing consistent about prophets is how inconsistent they are.
Very true. Yes. Yeah, I've actually been researching for a new video and looking at all the things that prophets have said, and yeah, that's how it is. Mormonism's almost 200 years old, and it's just like all over the place consistency-wise.
I bet, and when you get to have like a new prophet every so often, they're going to change things. So, and the last one is, why would God need a signed affidavit?
Oh, yeah. The Book of Mormon starts out with a signed affidavit from a bunch of guys basically saying, yeah, what Joseph Smith said was true. The Book of Mormon is true. Yeah.
So did you get to see, I mean, since you were a Mormon, you know, clearly you've seen the golden plates, right?
Nobody has seen the golden plates. I mean,
no way.
Little bit. Yeah, it's kind of like I don't know. It's something that when you're a Mormon, it's just like, well, of course, because how would you have faith if you could actually see them? You have to have faith.
Yeah, faith tends to be used against the faithful quite often. I figured we'd start the show, since I've been doing these kind of hangouts, it's just been random chat, but now we're getting into actual content creators. So I wondered if you could start with kind of the story of your own Mormon upbringing and then eventually like, well, what got you out?
Yeah, sure. So I was raised in the church. My family goes back. I'm a 7th generation Mormon. So my ancestors were pioneers all the way back to Joseph Smith. And so I was raised in the church my whole life, and I was baptized when I was 8. And my family was active for my entire life. Like we never didn't go to church ever. Like we went on vacation, like we'd go on vacations and not be home and still have to find a church to go to. So we were very, very active. And it never occurred to me that the church wasn't true. It was a fact. Like I never was taught it was like, we believe this. It was just, oh, I know this is true. This is what I've been told my whole life. Just like the earth is round. It wasn't a question. But when I was 25, I read something called the Ces Letter, which is basically a very long list of questions and contradictions within the church that somebody wrote to the church educational system, asking basically like, this doesn't make sense. I don't understand this. So there's a lot of things in it that like a lot of Mormons don't know about, just with the historicity of the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith being a prophet, those kinds of things. So I read that, and all of a sudden, all of this new information that I'd never, ever heard of before was in front of me. Lots of stuff that's in South Park, stuff that like other people have heard about Mormonism, but the Mormons haven't heard, because Mormons aren't supposed to look at anything that's not church approved. So when I looked at that, that's when everything kind of came crashing down, and I was like, I didn't know any of this. I didn't know about the polygamy and the polyandry, and I didn't know that Joseph Smith used a rock to translate the Book of Mormon. But that's what started like the end of my Mormon journey, was reading that and having tons of questions, and then researching from that point onward and discovering that after I'd seen all of this, I didn't believe that the church was true anymore.
So what, do you know the timing of like when the CES letter came out?
I don't. It was a long time before I saw it, because I know friends that are my age that saw it when they were like 15 years old, and I'm 26, so it's got to have been quite a while ago. And I knew it was kind of out there because I'd heard like rumors on Facebook and stuff, and I'd had friends who had left and talked about it. But again, like they teach you, do not look at anti-Mormon stuff. And so even though I knew it existed, I didn't think that I should look at it because it was like satanic and evil and bad. So, I mean, I don't know. The only reason I ever even looked at it was because I thought my testimony in the church is strong enough that I can't be affected. Clearly that wasn't true, but that's what I thought.
Yeah, that testimony needs to be double checked, huh?
Apparently so.
But you were already like, you were what, 24, 25 at that point? And did you?
Yeah, I had just turned 25.
And you were married, and by the way, 4 kids and a puppy.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And a YouTube channel, of course. Yeah, you can put it all together. But what was it like when you kind of brought this to your husband, since you both were Mormons, you were married in the church, you got to do the double wedding dress thing, which if you want to talk about that, feel free.
Yeah, I'll touch on that really quickly before I go on. Yeah, Mormons have to wear a wedding dress like during their wedding that goes all the way down, covers their ankles and covers their wrists. So very, very, very super modest. So most people don't want to wear a dress like that in their wedding pictures. So they wear a temple dress inside the temple that covers everything and is super modest, and then change into like a for show dress. I did that. But yeah, when I read the CES letter, my husband was at work, and I was like reeling and like freaking out. I have anxiety, and so it was like, I don't know. I thought my husband was going to leave me. I thought he wouldn't want to be married to me if I didn't believe the church was true. And I think I called him right after I started looking into it and was just like trying to tell him, like, I don't know what's going on. I'm scared. All of the stuff is coming up. And I mean, for me, like, maybe it sounds kind of stupid, but for me, it was like the church was my entire identity. And so finding out that maybe it's not real was like beyond shocking. But my husband was like, calm down. I'm sure it'll be okay. I'm going to come home and, we can look at this together. I'm sure it's going to be fine. I have, I went on a mission. I have answers for this stuff. So he ended up coming home, and I started just like reading off everything that was in the CES letter and being like, did you know this and this and this and this? And at first he kind of had some answers for it. Like, oh, well, such and such. But as I kept going, I could see his face just start to like, his eyes got bigger, and he kept looking down at the ground like, nope, never heard of that. Don't have an answer for that. But I mean, since we both heard it in the first day, we kind of were able to work through some of those feelings together, and we ended up leaving the church at the same time.
So what is the process for leaving the Mormon church?
It kind of depends on the person, because some people don't like care to actually get their records removed from the church or anything. And then I don't know, but the church will bother you if you don't do that. So what we did was we did opt to have our records removed from the church in hopes that they would leave us alone. And there's a website called quitmormon.com that will help you leave. At the time that we left, like I tried that, but the church has been blocking a lot of Quit Mormon stuff where they will make you have like a signed not affidavit, but like a signed document from a notary saying that you want to leave. So you actually have to pay to get that. and then provide
You
an
mean
ID
like the
and
document
everything.
that proves that the Book of Mormon is real? Not quite.
Sort of, kind of like that. But anyway, like they were going through this process of trying to make it more difficult for Quit Mormon to help people leave when I was trying to leave. And it was taking so long that I decided to just ask my bishop. And so I ended up calling him and saying, like, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I want to leave. And after some back and forth with him, he just told me to write a little letter saying, I don't want to be a member anymore. And my husband and I both signed it. He sent it to the church headquarters. And within a week, we were out.
Impressive. Now,
yeah, it was faster than Quit Mormon.
Atheists are often told they leave religion so they can sin. So did you leave so you could drink alcohol, have coffee soda, or just so you could show your shoulders in public? Because we know those are the only reasons.
I can show my shoulders. That's the only reason I left.
Exactly.
Obviously.
I knew it. The truth comes out. Okay, so there's a long road to travel between, hey, I'm leaving my religion, to, hey, I'm going to start creating content and talking about being an ex-Mormon. So how did your YouTube show get, what was the idea that kind of got it started?
Well,
who helped to get it started?
Before I even started thinking about it, when I left, I was looking for other content creators, just people that ex-Mormons that had been through it and stuff. And that's what got me through, was watching ex-Mormons and atheists and things like that, being like, oh, I'm not alone. There's other people. But I never thought of doing it for myself until I had commented something on Facebook on an ex-Mormon video, and my dad saw it and was just he replied to it and was sad. And I was just all I had said was I understand and I get what you're going through, kind of a thing. And so I called him and was how is that sad? I'm making friends. I have a community. And we ended up getting in this big argument, and he told me fine, you left the church, but just keep your mouth shut about it. And I was so hurt and offended. I was are you serious?
That was a mistake right there.
It was. Well, I mean, I'm happy about it now. But at the time I was really upset. And I was the church, all they do is tell you to share with people, tell other people, try to convert people. But the second that I'm not a member anymore, I just need to shut up. And I think within 1 or 2 days of that is when I sat down and made my first video. And I don't know if it was out of spite. It was more I'm just I'm going to do what I want. This is something important to me, and I'm going to talk about it, and the community of it and helping other people matters to me. So I made that first video, not really planning on continuing, but a lot of people responded to it really positively, and it got a lot more traction than I ever thought it would. And when people started commenting and saying this was so helpful, thank you so much, this is amazing, I was I think I'm going to keep doing it because it seems like it's helping people. And I remember being in that position and seeing other people's videos and feeling, vilified. I was wow, this makes a big difference to people. It made a big difference to me. So I just kept doing it.
Now, I haven't asked people very often about where they record in the studio, but you tend to do your videos from a minivan. So
yeah.
What's behind your location for where you usually do your videos?
Well, the first one that I did was in my minivan because I have 4 kids and they're all really little and they're really loud. And so it's finding peace and quiet in my house is very difficult unless I wait till they're all sleeping, right now. But I decided to just keep doing it in my van because the sound was actually pretty decent because there's not echoing, and it's a place that I can go and have quiet and get away from the loudness in the house.
So what would you consider your elevator pitch for what is Xmolex for people who have never checked it out before?
Basically an ex-Mormon talking about my experiences in the church and sharing other people's experiences. And then sharing, I do a lot of research about, things the church has done or said over the years, about prophets, about the Book of Mormon itself. and just kind of trying to show people things that I didn't know as a member or I wasn't aware of, because when I found out 25 years later, I was shocked and upset. So I feel like the church needs to be more honest, but since they're not,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and share that information and hope that it helps people, because a lot of people over the past several months have emailed me and let me know that it was helpful to them, and that's what's important to me, is just being a voice for people.
And do you have a usual plan, like you're going to do a relatively short, because sometimes YouTube videos can be like 3-4 hours, but you tend to do like 15-20 minute shows that are pretty digestible, and individually at least.
Yeah. I mean, I mostly just try to do that because I think of like the videos that I like to watch are typically shorter. I mean, like usually they're not that long. So I don't know, just trying to keep people's attention. And since I record every single week, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to try to do little short things and things that people maybe will have the time to stop and watch. But typically, like most of my videos, people watch like halfway through. So even though they're not that long, but.
And about
that's how I do it.
How often do you post? Usually weekly?
Yeah, every week.
So how is the ex-Mormon community on Twitter, YouTube? Have you had a lot of kind of feedback and a lot of people letting you know how you're doing?
Yeah. I mean, on YouTube is obviously where I have the biggest following, and the people there are amazing. I have a lot of people that I've been, I can see that they comment on like every video, and they're really, really sweet and kind. And there's a lot of people that, I mean, it seems to matter to them, and that kind of warms my heart that they care to sit and watch my videos and comment and let me know that it mattered to them. Twitter is like not as great. Like there's still a lot of amazing people there, but there's also a lot of, because it can pop up on anybody's feed, and so I end up with a lot of people that really dislike what I do too. But it comes with the territory, I guess.
Well, you've done some episodes where you've actually played or read the like negative comments toward you. So what are your thoughts when you get, I mean, maybe like the first time you got like a negative comment, and now people that may actually watch your videos kind of hate watch them, who are still on the pro-Mormon side, which is interesting. How does that go for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it really doesn't really get to me, because for the most part, I just try to think like, I mean, at one point I was that person. I had an ex-Mormon friend that just constantly posted stuff that I thought was like hatred and like, it's so anti-Mormon and mean. And that's how I viewed it back then. And so now when people post that kind of stuff, I just kind of think of my old friend and how I felt about him before I left the church. And some of the comments are really mean, but most of them I feel like they make with like the best of intentions, even if they're not very nice. And I know that when I was a Mormon and I saw like things that were anti-Mormon or mean about the church, like if I ever responded to them, I wasn't trying to do it in a rude way. And I feel like for most people, even if they come across really nasty, they don't mean it that way. So it doesn't really get to me. I feel like I'm glad that they're watching it at all, because I'm hoping that at some point they start picking up on some of the stuff I say.
I mean, if they're listening, you might as well give them some interesting information. So during the course of your kind of year plus doing this, have you had some like favorite episodes that have been, that maybe you've done a lot of work and you felt really rewarded when you came out, and the kind of feedback you've gotten?
Yeah. One of my very favorite ones we actually mentioned earlier was the Church of Contradictions. It's just one about like all these different things that the church has done and said over the years that like completely contradict each other. I did a lot of research for that episode and was, kind of blown away, but like, I don't know. I really liked that one. And then there was another one, do Mormons trust the prophet too much, which was really heavily centered around a talk by one of the prophets where he just gave this whole list of things about prophets. And I also had gone to a Mormon Facebook group and asked them, would you do what the prophet asked you no matter what? And got a actual Mormon input on what they thought of that. And so anyway, the whole video together I thought was like really interesting to see just how much and just how like truly believing Mormons are, to the point where no matter what the prophet said, even if it sounded crazy, they would do it. I feel like stuff like that is really important for people to see. So yeah, those are my favorite ones. Are really the ones where like I do a lot of research beforehand. And then also, sorry, there's one more, but there's one I did about LDS missionaries where I just took basically stories from people that had gone on LDS missions and talked about their experiences and told their stories. And it was a really, really sad video, and it was hard to make because I feel like a lot of the stuff missionaries go through is really difficult. But at the same time, I think like maybe some kid that's like 18 years old will see this before they leave and maybe decide not to go, or maybe they'll be at least aware of what could happen while they're gone. Because I feel like missionaries have it really, really rough. So that one I really liked too.
It's probably true with like missionaries. They're going to be told like a very rosy version of what's going to happen to them, instead of like, here's what you really need to be prepared for. I mean, you have to be prepared for the negative and the positive. And we'll get to kind of cult-like behavior a little down the road. So I can't remember, is it a 5 or 7 times grandfather who was a major Mormon figure and wrote a book?
Yeah, his name is Robert Taylor Burton. I'm pretty sure he was let's see, I think it's like 6 generations because his parents were baptized too. So I'm pretty sure he's 6, but he was, he was pretty influential to the point where there's a Mormon movie about the pioneers, and he was mentioned in the movie. And yeah, he had like a bunch of wives and was part of the whole founding Utah kind of thing. But yeah, he did write a book, and I had the book. I no longer have the book. I feel bad that I threw it away actually, but I'll probably get it back at some point. When I left the church, I got rid of everything because I just didn't want to look at it. So
it's kind of understandable. As atheists, sometimes it's weird for us to like identify as what we are not. But how important is it for you to kind of identify as an ex-Mormon, to say, this is who I am? Maybe this is who I'm not.
It's actually really important to me. Like, and a lot of people, especially Mormons, like make fun of me for it. Like, oh, if you don't care about the church, then why are you an ex-Mormon? Like, why are you talking about that? But for me, like, it's actually like really important for me to distinguish that this is what I was and this is what I am now. Just because, like, I don't know, I guess being Mormon was my whole life. Like, it was everything to me. It was what I thought about, this is what I was before I was born, and this is what I'm going to be after I die, and this is how I'm raising my children, and this is everything. This is my whole entire life. And so after I left, and especially, just seeing that there's so many other people that are caught up in the same thing that I was, being ex-Mormon, part of me will always be Mormon because, like I said, I'm a 7th generation. My entire family is Mormon. Part of me, even if I'm ex-Mormon, is still Mormon in some sense. But being no longer active and no longer participating and no longer a member, and instead being somebody that advocates for the opposite is a big deal to me. It's something that I'm really proud of and that I'm glad people know.
Well, this is probably a bad question to ask someone who has 4 kids and a puppy, but do you actually have more free time now that you're out of the church? Because it sounds like when you're involved in the church, it's not just 3 hours on Sunday. And by the way, yes, 3 hours on Sunday, people. It's like your entire life. So do you feel like, I don't even know if free time is right, but like free thought is part of your life now?
Well, I had 4 kids before I left. So it was 4 kids plus church. And now, it's 4 kids plus a puppy, which is way better than church. So, I mean, I get my entire Sunday free now, because it is 3 hours. It was 3 hours. Now it's 2 hours, actually. But at the time when I was in, it was 3 hours. But you also were not allowed to go shopping or go out to eat or order food or buy anything or go anywhere because it's the Sabbath and we don't work or purchase things on the Sabbath at all. So it's not just the 3 hours of Sunday, it's the whole Sunday where I can just do whatever I want. And that's, I mean, it's amazing. It's a whole 7th of the week where I can actually do fun things.
So in communities that are really like strictly Mormon, do they shut down a lot on weekends?
Yeah, actually. And I never really
Or on
noticed
Sundays?
it as a Mormon, but I have family that lives in Utah and I've gone back to visit them since then. And like we'll be driving through and I think we had like a car problem one time and we're like, oh, we need to stop at a mechanic, but nowhere's open on Sundays. So I'm like, we're driving and I have a car problem and it's Sunday, so I can't stop to get the car problem looked at, which is ridiculous. Or like I can't stop anywhere I want to get food because most places are closed. It's really, really, really dumb.
Well, there's a Jewish community near where I live, and on Saturdays, people are just walking because that's their day. I don't know how the Christians just said, hey, we're going to change the day. Sorry, guys, but
yeah, who knows?
Yeah, we're going to do this thing. But we'll have to talk about Mormon kind of cultural stuff that you're involved with, because it's just fascinating for people who are never involved like I was. So you did some baptisms of the dead. What was that whole process like?
Basically, when you're 12 years old, you get interviewed by a bishop of your ward, and they ask you all these like worthiness questions to see if you're worthy to go in the temple or not, which is a whole thing in itself, really creepy, because you're alone with an adult man, and they ask you questions about like if you're being pure. It's a whole thing. But basically, if you are worthy, you get your temple recommend, and you can go to the temple. They have this. It's like a big giant tub, basically, that has golden oxen all the way around the rim, like full-sized golden oxen. And you go down in the water with a priesthood holder, which is always a man, and he says the special words to baptize you by proxy in the name of somebody that has died, and they dunk you underwater for that person. And then you'll do that like it isn't always the same number of times, but usually it's like 5 or 10 times or something. They'll baptize you for each individual person, and and then the next person goes. You just take turns. It sounds like a lot cooler than it is getting baptized for the dead, but
yeah,
it's not that cool. It's kind of lame, actually.
Do any ex-Mormons do like unbaptisms for the dead, or is that not a thing yet?
No, I mean, once you no longer believe, there's no point.
Get a kiddie pool in your backyard. You could do this. This could be something. So as a believer, obviously you read the Book of Mormon and you thought this is the greatest thing ever, but you're rereading it. So what is that experience like for you?
See, I already read it again, and it's weird. You notice a whole different story than when you read it as a Mormon, because you're only looking for like the positives. Every time you go to a Sunday school class or you go to seminary, which is something that Mormon kids do when they're in high school, they go to like a class basically, but they just teach you to like look for like things that are like really positive and important and underline them and talk about like the positives. But then you go back as an ex-Mormon and I'm like, well, I don't believe any of this. And so I notice all these faults and things that don't make any sense that I never noticed before as a Mormon. And it actually kind of becomes like a game where I'm like, what other weird things can I find? It's like, it's a completely different experience.
So what was it like moving? Because you're originally from Utah and you moved from Idaho. Did you do that to get kind of away from Idaho is still pretty Mormon, but not quite as much as Utah.
I actually moved to Idaho before I ever left the church, so it wasn't related. But now looking back, I'm really glad that I left, because I don't think I could handle living in Utah anymore.
Do you still have your temple garments? Or is that thrown out?
I do not have my garments. It was one of the things that I threw away. But I actually have a friend who left the church who gave my husband and I all of their old temple clothes, not the garments, but like the dress and the robe and all of that stuff. Um, and I've got it like sitting in the garage, and I'm hoping to use it in the future. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet, but I have it. I'm very excited about it.
Well, you live in Utah or you live in Idaho, and a lot of people have guns there. So you can definitely check the whole thing. The temple garments, are they bulletproof? You know, give them a shot. Not where you're wearing them, of course. Just hanging out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth a try. I'm not worthy though, so it doesn't work if you're not worthy. I'm just saying.
Did you have to? So you had to wear these clothes, and it might be too personal, but like under your clothes all the time as a Mormon?
Oh yeah, all the time. Even when you're sleeping, you have to wear them. I mean, not everybody does, but you're supposed to.
So the difference between like the genders was like the women's version of the temple clothes, were they way more restrictive? Were they, because they were covering like all the way to the wrist, all the way to the ankle, obviously covering the shoulders?
That's only the temple dress. The dress goes all the way to your wrists and all the way down to your ankles. But the garments are just like wearing basically a t-shirt that goes like a little bit lower, not all the way to the cleavage, but like a little bit lower than a regular tee, and then shorts that go to your knees. And that's the same for men and women.
Okay, and you're supposed to wear those all the time, right?
Yes.
Man, that's something else.
It got really hot in the summer. That was the worst part.
I bet. So you've been studying your former religion, and you've been kind of comparing it to a cult. So do you think Mormonism is a cult, and what makes it so?
It's absolutely a cult. For me, the way I've been researching it is by Stephen Hassan's BITE model, which stands for behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotional control. He basically just lists out things that are indicative of a cult. And when I was going through that information, for me, it was obvious that the church lines up with all of this, or at least most of it, and is a cult. And to me, in my opinion, is a damaging cult. It harms people. And the things that are on that, just to give you an idea, would be like that teach anything that's not approved by the group is not okay, is evil, is bad. So they do like insider versus outsider kind of doctrine, very black and white thinking. They control what you wear, how you style your hair. So for Mormons, like you can't show your shoulders, you can't show your cleavage, you can't show your upper back, you can't show your midriff, you can't show your legs above the knee. You're also not allowed to have tattoos or piercings other than one hole in each earlobe. You're not supposed to, I mean, they also have a thing where you're not supposed to have like kind of dramatic hairstyles, things that are unnatural. And it's not like a rule, but it's like an unspoken rule, if that makes sense. You'll be judged for it. And it is in the standards that they have for their youth, is not to have extreme hairstyles. So they do control a lot of that. Another point is like controlling what you eat or drink, which the Mormon Church does with not allowing coffee, tea, and alcohol. They also, things like not allowing to marry outside of the group. You need to marry somebody who is a member, things like that. And I mean, that's just like a small portion of the things the church does that would qualify them as a cult, but that's just, to give an idea.
Yeah, there's so many aspects of that. So there are parts of you that have nothing to do with Mormonism. It's totally crazy, I know, but you're really big now. You've had 4 kids, and you can tell me the ages of them, but you're really big into kind of environmentalism and cloth diapering. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So I at one point had 3 kids that were under age 3, so they were all in diapers, 3 in diapers, and it got really expensive. And I one day just saw somebody posted a picture of their kid wearing a cloth diaper, and I was like, it's actually really cute, and it doesn't look like those weird like pinned up things of like the olden days. It just looks like, you know, something regular. So I ended up getting into it because it looked cute and I thought it could save us money. So yeah, I mean, I only have one kid wearing diapers now, but it's something I still do.
That's, I don't know if it's more work or less. I mean, once you're into it, you're probably okay.
It was a lot of work when I started, and with 3, it was a lot of work, like a lot of laundry. But
Yeah.
it was worth it for like, I mean, just knowing that it was helping the environment, and also it was helping with the cost. And then now with only, after I've done 3 and then done 2, just having 1 is like nothing, like no big deal.
I bet. So are the things like you miss about being a Mormon? Do you miss like the fact that you're going to have your own planet, or is that you over that now?
I'm really over that part of it. But when I first left, it was really, really, really difficult for me to digest the fact that, I mean, like, because I didn't become an atheist right after, but it came, you know, within like a month or so, I was an atheist. Not believing in like a heaven and an afterlife where I would be with my family forever at first was really, really hard for me. It was something that like I almost wanted to pretend to believe in Mormonism in the hopes that maybe that would actually be true. Because to me, the best thing that I could imagine was to be with my kids forever. And starting, you know, to have that feeling like, oh, I actually don't believe that anymore, it was really sad.
And how's the relationship with the family? Because being part of a Mormon family, that's a big family, and I'm guessing most, if not all, are believers still.
Yeah, 99% are believers, and I have a big family because I'm Mormon. So
Well, yeah, but have you? I feel like you've talked about this before. Have you actually had, and maybe it's not even family members, like maybe other people who are Mormons still, who actually come to you on the sly and say, hey, what have you actually heard about this that maybe could help me out?
I've had a few people that used to be in my ward when I was a kid, and I've had a couple of cousins reach out to me that were LDS, just being like, hey, I saw like your ex-Mormon Instagram, like what is that? And just asking like a few questions, and a lot of them didn't know a lot of the information that, you know, I didn't know it either before, but were like shocked and like, what is this? So I have talked to some of them about it, and some of them that were really like, they weren't active members, but they also didn't like disbelieve to the point where now they've seen some of my stuff and they're like, oh yeah, I don't believe anymore.
Oh, it's cool that you can be that kind of
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping it
go-to.
happens for more people, like more of my family, please. Come beyond the dark side.
Exactly. It's nice. You know, it's much cooler, and the beverages are nicer, and there's a wide variety of that sort of thing. So you mentioned in one of your episodes about you had like a weight loss journey. So what was that whole thing like? And you had to go through that and through like being out of your religion too. How was that?
Yeah. Well, I've had 4 kids back to back to back and had gained a lot of weight in the midst of doing that. And after I had my last one, I got my tubes tied and was like, I want to get back to being myself because being really overweight sucks. So, I went on a diet and lost a ton of weight. And at that point is kind of when I mean, it was like I had lost pretty much all of the weight I was going to lose, and then found out about the church like right after that. So it was kind of like I lost most of the weight at that point. But it was kind of cool because like I left the church, I was feeling like really good about myself. And all of a sudden, like I left the church. So that was like really terrible in a lot of ways because it was scary. But you know, I felt good about myself, and it was an easier transition, I feel like, than it would have been had I been still really overweight and unhappy. So, you know, it kind of worked itself out, ended up being pretty good.
Well, let's say if you were able to reach out to the Mormon Church and say, you know what, can I get a refund for all my tithing? What would you buy yourself with that money? Because you were talking about you were tithing at like age 9 because kids like
I was tithing as soon as I got like.
I mean, as soon as you had money, like as soon as you had a nickel,
yeah.
the church gets like a penny out of that, right?
Yeah, like I mean, the first tooth I lost from the I got money from the tooth fairy when I was like 6. I paid tithing on that.
Man, they really get you there. And I'm hearing a lot about the Mormon Church helping people out during the whole COVID situation. And there's a lot of churches. I'm hearing a lot of churches taking the small business loans, and I'm sure the Mormon Church is involved in that. And they're not going to.
They took $54 million.
And how much money did they have? They have so much.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we don't know exactly, but we know they have an account with 100 billion in it. So that's just that's just the tip of the iceberg.
So I forgot, and you may not know this, but you can't know everything, but doesn't the Mormon Church, does it own where they think the Garden of Eden is? Because it's in Missouri, according to, Book of Mormon.
Yeah. So
I forget if they own it or somebody else owns it and they're like trying to buy it and they haven't been able to get it. But I didn't know.
I honestly don't remember for sure if they ever did get a hold of it or not. I'm pretty sure it was actually a break off of the church, like the RLDS or something that owned it. The exact like plot that they wanted or something. I can't be sure if they actually ever got a hold of it or not, but I knew they were after it at some point.
That is something else.
Yeah.
So what is the future of Xmolex? Like, how far in advance have you already planned, the next few episodes? And will there be crossover episodes, or, you keep doing the minivan thing? Of course, inviting the puppy aboard.
So I'm probably not going to do the minivan thing forever, only because it is extremely cold in the winter and extremely hot in the summer. And that's not fun at all. So I'm hoping at some point that I can make some kind of a studio in my house and get some better equipment. But for now, I usually don't plan that far in advance. Like I have the episode that's ready for tomorrow, and then the one I'm going to do next week planned. And after that, I don't know, because most of the time I'm just like, this sounds fun. Or, I wait till the last minute and then I'm like, this sounds like something I'd like to talk about. And then I do it.
Well, there's something about like a show momentum, because I know like I had you scheduled for this week. I don't have anybody scheduled for next week. So we'll see how that goes. And it's kind of how it goes with doing content is you can get that momentum. So, you need to put out a show every week or so. But then, you get that deadline pressure where you're like, okay, what's,
What am I going to talk about? Yeah, that happens sometimes.
Exactly. So, as someone, let's see, who has a bunch of kids, what's like a hobby you do that maybe has nothing to do with being someone with 4 kids and married and doing a podcast, like something that maybe you do for yourself?
Oh, I'm really into going to concerts. I like rock and metal. And
what are concerts again? I feel like now, I don't know, actually, well, it depends on what state you're in. They're going to be like, they're opening stuff up where I am a little bit, but concerts, we'll see if that happens again.
I mean, everything that I was planning to go to in the next several months was canceled or rescheduled. But, when they're actually, when life is normal, I like to go to concerts.
But you've gotten into heavy metal, right?
Yeah.
And that's really there's got to be Mormon heavy metal, right? Maybe not.
Not that I know of like Mormon specifically, but when I was Mormon, I did listen to a lot of Christian heavy metal that I still like because the music is really cool, even if I don't like the lyrics as much as I used to.
True. Yeah. There's always something. It's like the thinking atheist Seth Andrews, like every version of Christianity like steals from popular culture and takes it as its own. And there's always a version of something that is popular. So before we call it a night. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you'd like to cover on tonight's show?
I mean, not really. I guess the one thing that I would want to say is that if you're an ex-Mormon or an atheist that's trying to help current Mormons, the most important things I think you should do is be really, really nice to them. And then as an ex-Mormon specifically, if somebody that's Mormon is talking to you, try to remember what it was like to be a Mormon, because they don't know how you feel. They've never been an ex, but you know exactly what they're going through because you've been there. And try to pay attention to that when you're responding to them, and do it in the nicest way you can. Don't try to, don't do anything that's going to ostracize them and make them try to get away from the whole anti-Mormon side of it even more.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like we've had this push in our country to like embrace being the mean version of yourself, and it's like, well, how about being the nice version, especially when everybody's stuck inside and can't get out, and it's frustrating, and you want to kind of, all that stuff I used to do that I just took for granted, like going to the grocery store, which is a chore now, is not as easy as possible. So are you the type of person who would if you do karaoke, do you have a go-to song, or is that not your thing?
I don't think I've ever, not since I was a kid. They had that karaoke revolution. I think it was on the Wii or something, like forever ago. Might have even been before the Wii, but I think that was the last time I did actual karaoke.
I still
it feels like forever ago, because I think I was like 13 or something, so it's been a while.
Truly. Well, I was just checking on that. So how can people, find your content and keep up with you online, and basically go for me and find their new best friend, which would be you?
Well, my YouTube channel is Xmolex, and my Twitter and Instagram are Exmo_Lex. That's pretty much it. That's like the extent of my reach so far.
If you keep it simple, because nobody can spell Zachrilege, Xmolex, people can figure out so much easier. So there you go. You're already winning the marketing war. Well, thank you, Lex, for being on tonight. Thank you for being flexible with your schedule. It's late here. It's early there, and you're already done the live stream, so it's all good. So thank you for joining the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.